Hey everybody, it's Katie. Today I am here with my friend Stephanie and we are going to talk about postpartum depression. I think probably most people on this planet have heard of postpartum depression, but unless it's actually touched you or someone that you know, I feel like it's not something that many people actually know about. So today we're going to talk about it. We're going to blow the roof off the stigmas because we want to get it out in the open. We want to talk about it and we want to encourage any of you who might be dealing with it or have someone who you know is dealing with it. When my oldest daughter was born, I had done all of the things that I needed to do as far as her pregnancy. I had done the classes, I had read the books, I had done everything, but I wasn't prepared for what was going to come in the days after she was born. This is supposed to be one of the happiest times of your life as a mom. You know, you have this brand new, beautiful little baby and she's finally here. And that, while that was sort of true for me, I also struggled with feelings of like, I don't know if I really want to have this baby. Have I made a mistake? And then of course there's the guilt that comes with that feeling because I'm feeling like I'm not a good mom. Why am I feeling like this? And I would just be weepy and I didn't know why. And of course I'd heard of postpartum depression. Like I said, I think everybody has, but I didn't know anything about it. And I talked to a friend and she said, I think you might have the baby blues. And I'm like, what? She's like, postpartum depression. She's like, I had it, it's okay. And I'm like, oh, well maybe so. And from there I was able to reach out to friends and to read up on it and to start to educate myself about what it was, which helped alleviate a lot of the guilt that I was carrying. Several weeks ago, my friend Stephanie was at our mom's group and she did a talk on postpartum depression and it was so powerful and encouraging. And at the end, she asked if there were other moms who were dealing with this so we could pray for them. And there's probably about 12 tables and at least one hand, if not 2 to 3 hands per table went up, meaning that there were a bunch of women who were dealing with this on some level, you know, whether it's a little bit or a lot. And so it made me realize, like, let's talk about this and let's push that stigma back because there's nothing wrong with you if you're feeling this way. So as I mentioned early on, this is my friend Stephanie, and she lives here in the same town as me, obviously. She is a nurse. And so I wanted to thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. I wanted to have her just share a little bit of her wisdom on postpartum depression. So maybe, Stephanie, you could start off with just telling us what is postpartum depression for those who might not know.
Sure. Postpartum depression is part of a category of mood conditions that can arise after childbirth. We don't really know what causes it, but we think it has something to do with the shifting hormones and how that affects the neurotransmitters or chemicals in the brain in the days and weeks after childbirth. These conditions are very real and can be considered a complication of childbirth, just like a tear.
Wow.
So they can have a variety of symptoms. It can be things like sadness, hopelessness, feeling overwhelmed, anxious, feeling disconnected, feeling tension, panic, rapid mood swings, anger, insomnia, exhaustion, having difficulty bonding with baby, frightening and recurring thoughts, poor concentration or memory loss, or thoughts of harming self or baby. So most commonly it starts out looking like postpartum anxiety, but then there can be some symptoms of depression, or it can look like a few other things. We often hear of the story on the news of the mom that did something dramatic and hurt their baby, and that's actually postpartum psychosis, which is much more rare and a very small percentage. So much more often it looks more like depression and anxiety in the postpartum period. I share this because there can be such a shame and a stigma surrounding it. Like Katie said, most of us have heard of it, but we really don't know much about it. And so it's actually as common as 1 in 5 moms now. And so the more we talk about it, the more that we're able to reduce that shame and guilt and then be able to educate more so that moms can get the help that they need.
Yeah. As I mentioned, Stephanie also went through postpartum depression, and I shared a little bit about what it looked like for me. And so I wanted to ask Stephanie if you wouldn't mind sharing, what did postpartum depression look like for you?
Sure. Well, for me, it was a lot like you, Katie. I had done all of the research, took the classes. I'm a nurse that's worked with women and children for years before I had my own. So I thought I was fairly prepared and educated. But going through something like that was really the last thing that I expected after I had my daughter. So I just remember right after she was born, I immediately had feelings of anxiety that was irrational. And I remember feeling overwhelmed. And in the days and weeks following, I had difficulty sleeping, mood swings, getting into fights with my husband, which was rare for us prior to that. And I just remember feeling so overwhelmed. And then it was so intense that as the time went on, then I started to feel a lot more sad and hopeless and feeling like I just don't know if I can keep going. I wish that I wasn't here. And on top of those things that were happening for me, we also just had some challenges with things like breastfeeding and things like some developmental challenges for my daughter. So those things alone would have been really difficult for a postpartum mom to deal with. But then to have the postpartum depression on top of it made it so that it was a really challenging thing to go through. And I actually, even though I knew what it was, I actually questioned it for months because I thought, well, am I just not adjusting to motherhood very well? Am I just kind of selfish and not like doing so well with this little person that I need
very
to
demanding
get up at night and early in the morning?
I
even questioned my sense of like maturity and my relationship with God. It really ended up being this self-doubt and scrutinizing myself, really not knowing that, hey, there could be this whole other thing that's coming into play. And it took me a few months to actually recognize that and then get some help.
So after all of that, how did it finally start to get better for you?
Well, I went ahead and sought out some help at a local pregnancy care center. I took a brief assessment that helped to assess the symptoms of what was going on, and then I was referred to a program through our county, and so I was able to get some free counseling sessions that really helped me just walk through that hardest time and have that support. And I actually had looked at some things online as well. Postpartum Support International is an amazing website, and they have a helpline phone number that you can call, and they'll help you. Yes, a volunteer will talk with you, and then they'll help you find resources in your area. Another resource might be to check with your obstetrician or primary care doctor, or as well your child's pediatrician or family doctor may also be able to refer you. And then the last thing would be maybe to check with public health in your county, because there can actually be programs that are paid for that can help moms going through something like this.
That's so good.
So that was the first thing that I did to help turn things around. And then when my daughter was about 9 months old, I started to do some things on my own. I got to the place where I realized I could let this continue to define me and how my life was going, or I could get my power back by choosing how I was going to respond to what was happening. And that started to make the difference. And I started doing things that weren't comfortable. It wasn't easy, but I made the choice to kind of move things in a different direction. And it took some effort to get some momentum at first, but I really think that that was what made the most difference for me. So it was things like getting myself to go to church every week regularly. I needed to get out of the house and be around other people. Even though I was insecure, anxious, it was hard to take my daughter to church by myself because my husband was at work. I started attending a Bible study weekly, and at that point I was dealing with insomnia, so I would sometimes be falling asleep as we're watching the Bible study video. But it was like, I need to go. I need to get to know some new community. I need to let them into my life. And there was actually, that was probably one of the most helpful things, was to be able to share where I was at, what was going on, and to have friends that would still accept me and love me and not judge me. And they were really supportive. So some other things that I did was I found 2 scriptures that were really meaningful for me. One is Philippians 4:13. So I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. But I actually flipped it around, and so it was, if you will strengthen me, I can do this. And so I would think that to myself,
good.
like as I was going about the day, like when I would have a challenge with my daughter, God, if you will strengthen me, I can do this. And that was something that sometimes I said that to myself 50 times a day. So you might have a positive affirmation or a scripture that you use. There was another one that says, the Lord stood by and strengthened me in 2 Timothy. I actually had someone hand calligraphy that, and I put it on in a frame on my counter, and I would get a small bouquet of flowers every 2 weeks, and that was in my kitchen counter. And it was just a way to remind myself of that truth and to bring that beauty into with the flowers into my kitchen.
That's
and
so good.
Those things really started to make a difference for me.
Awesome.
And I also started, in retrospect, I can see that for me, walking through it brought so much more breakthrough in my life and so much personal development than if I had just gotten a fast solution or a quick, easy answer. And so I think that if you're going through it, that's important to know too, that the process is building something really amazing in you.
Yeah, that's so good. I love it. I love the verses. When you shared those at the moms group, it was like, yes. I like how you flipped it too, because it's like, okay, if you can strengthen me, if you will strengthen me, I can do this. Because I don't know, in the kitchen. Perfect place. That's where we spend so much of our time, in the kitchen. Like, I'll be in there in the kitchen hanging out, just kind of taking a deep breath while, the living room's getting destroyed. So
right, or you're doing dishes, or you're cooking a meal.
Exactly. Or you're hiding. I mean,
yeah.
I don't do that.
Who does that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, so last question, and that would be, what would you say to someone who is currently going through postpartum depression right now?
Yeah. Well, I would say that you're not alone, you're not to blame, and with proper treatment, you will get better. Yeah. Postpartum depression is not a reflection of you as a person. It's not a reflection of you as a mom.
Yes.
It is something that can happen to anyone. It doesn't discriminate. Yeah. And also that you don't have to walk through it alone. You don't have to suffer. There are resources out there, and there are people that love you, and so you don't have to go through it alone.
Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah.
I love that. And it's true. We're not alone. I don't care who you are. Whether even if you don't have family or friends or anybody close to you, there are resources, and this isn't something to be ashamed of. So the last thing I want to say is, if you're a pregnant mom and you have made it thus far in our video, Stephanie and I would love to encourage you to check out some of the resources that we put in the description below. Stephanie has brought a lot of really great things to the table, because the more you know, the more prepared you'll be. That way, if this does happen, it's not like you've gotten slapped across the face, kind of like it did for us, because we felt, okay, well, we're definitely prepared for this. So it won't be such a slap. So that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you like our video, please click like. And I would also ask, if you know anybody that you think would benefit from this, please share it. Like I said at the very beginning of the video, we want to blow the roof off the stigma of this. It's not something that needs to be hush-hush. This is something that you need to do with people, with your tribe, and with your community. So if you would consider sharing it, we would be very honored. If you'd like to become a subscriber, just go ahead and click the subscribe button. That way you'll get notifications when we do new videos. We do those every week, and hopefully we'll see you again next week for our next video.